method.
But well, they sort of did at the end.
No,
but I was more interested in the personal things. I always thought that it is a very interesting thing when the plot takes a while to get going here, but what we see in the beginning, for the most part, is the way Holmes's mind works.
Now,
and when you are interested in a character doing what he's doing before the plot even starts, I think you're on a really good road.
I agree with you, but I think they could have done that better. And if you think about it, I mean, think about the scene in the restaurant where he had made a mistake and she threw wine in his face and he felt bad, and you could see the wheels turning in his head. What did that announce to him in the end? It gave us an introduction to this character, but well, that's what the scene was. Yeah, I know, but the personal stuff versus the case, it was a little bit jumbly. I thought it was, I didn't think it was threaded together very well. It seemed like, okay, we're going to do the case, okay, now stop for a minute, we're going to do personal stuff, rather than have it be more fluid. The other thing was, the biggest criticism I have of this movie, at some point, Holmes needed to start doubting himself. The magic trick needed to be so good, that and people needed to sort of be saying, you know, maybe this really is, and he needed to have a moment where he was doubting himself, and then he came back, and then
I agree with you there. I see where you're going with that, and I agree with you.
And that's why I say the supernatural stuff, the supernatural versus science, they didn't really do that. It was just nobody who, Watson and the girl and Holmes, they never for a second believed that this was going on. And the people doing the magic,
the audience is doubting whether or not it's going on. I do, but I think the audience is questioning whether or not. Yeah, well, actually, as I hear myself say that, I wasn't doubting it.
I knew right from the beginning this was a magic trick. I just didn't know how it was done.
Yeah.
But so I thought that could have been done so much better.
Well, I agree with you to a point. I think the movie has elements that are strong enough to where I guess that didn't really bother me very much. I will say that the ending of this film is pretty much just an advertisement for the next film, which I know that they're in pre-production right now. So if you're looking for a story where Holmes is going to be doubting himself and questioning himself, I think we're going to get that in the next film.
And that's a good point.
It's a pretty good introduction to what can be a good franchise.
I thought it could have been done better, but it wasn't bad. I want to stress that. This wasn't a bad movie, and I did enjoy a lot of it.
There was very little that I didn't like about this. I thought there were a few pacing issues towards the end more than anything else, when you were getting the black magic kind of right to the conclusion. It was just a little easier to figure out than I thought. Maybe this could have been a little trickier. When we put everything together in the end, with everything that was happening in the movie, that was pretty good.
Now, let me bring up something that you just said about Batman, the 80s Batman. Yes. You said once that your problem with that character was that he was never challenged. Do you think that Sherlock Holmes was challenged in this film at all?
No.
I wish he was.
But I liked watching the way his mind works, because it was very interesting to see that this is a guy, and we learned this in the beginning of the film, this is a guy who needs something to do. If he's not doing something, if he's not on a case, he drives himself crazy, and he goes up in his room. He's an introvert. He's much like me when I don't have anything to do. He sits around in his room and he fidgets around with all these things that don't really go anywhere. Yeah. He needs something productive in his mind to do. Or he's going to go and think. That's something I thought they could have done.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, too. I agree with you there. And I was going to say, to the degree that those things were good, you're talking about elements.
Yeah.
The elements were, I didn't think the overall picture.
I actually think you're more right than wrong when it comes to the elements not necessarily adding up to a spectacular film. I mean, there are definitely things that could have been done differently.
Some of those parts are definitely great.
Yeah, but I like those parts. And so I guess this is kind of a mild recommendation, because I was not bored once during the entire film. Maybe I was a different person in the middle, but it's very negligible. I mean, this is a very entertaining film. It's very well written.
I agree both those points. A critic had a serious problem. One critic that I read, he had a big problem with the action in this film.
And he leaves that for a cliffhanger, because we need to stop for part 2.
Okay.
Critic with a problem. Stay tuned. Okay, so you were saying about the critic.
The critic, I'm sure there's probably more. But he had a serious problem with the action in the film. And the karate fight. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes doesn't do that in the book. not really like a karate fighter or whatever. Although it's not too much of a stretch to think, well, if he's smart enough to, he would know how to prove something.
Before you get to the critic, and since there's criticism, I wanted to say that I actually thought that made the character a little more interesting because he wasn't just fighting for the sake of action. I mean, the action scenes are obviously put in so that the audience won't be bored, but this is the way of saying, this is the way Sherlock Holmes' mind works, and it's not just with science, it's with everything.
Right, and to that critic who had the problem, because his thing was, he thought that they put the action in there to get the kids into the theater, and he's probably right. But contrary to just making this a dumb action picture, here's what I think they did. I think, because to me, the action scenes in this movie were sparse. They were very few and far between.
And they were repetitive.
They were repetitive, but usually I think most action is, but they were few and they were relatively short. I think they said, let's put a couple of action scenes in this so we can put them in the trailer.
Well, I was going to say,
we'll get the
that's way more due to the people who make the trailers than it is to the people who make the movie.
But I think they dupe young people to go in and see a movie about character stuff and about good dialogue.
But I don't think it was much of a dupe.
I meant that.
I understand. But this movie really does have a lot of high energy, and I think younger audiences are going to be drawn to this, and I don't think they're going to be
But not to
disappointed.
the point of making it dumb, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know who wrote this movie because I haven't gone back and looked at any of the writing credits yet. They were a little hard for me to see at the end because, it's all done in brush strokes. But I'm surprised that no one asked Nicholas Meyer if he wanted to write this. Maybe they did and he turned it down, I don't know.
Nicholas Meyer, by the way, he directed...
he wrote Star Trek 2, 4, and 6. Well, co-wrote 4 and 6.
Yeah.
He wrote 2. And he's a huge Sherlock Holmes fan.
He's actually written authorized Sherlock Holmes novels.
His biggest one is the 7% Solution, which I have not read, unfortunately. And I feel bad about that. He's my favorite writer.
Hey, eventually, maybe we'll get to it. But you know what? I'm going to ask people to put things in the comments again. Put in the comments or send me or Matthew a message. If anybody knows if Nick Meyer has said anything about this movie, because I can't find anything.
Yeah,
if anybody knows if he's said anything about this movie, I want to know.
He seems to me like a guy, because he has that I suppose but they're not really big on continuity.
Right.
And I'm not either. I mean, continuity when it comes to, character, being true to the characters and true to the stories, that's what I care about. But if Chekhov wasn't there in the Khan episode and he was there in the film, and he goes, I don't give two shits. I just want to see a good story, and he puts that together well. And so that's a philosophy that I like. Obviously, these writers have the same philosophy because I don't know, but I've heard some fans that they took a lot of liberties with the character. I'm sure they did. But it's nice to see Robert Downey Jr. getting so much work. We were talking about this during the movie. Because Stan and I have always been fans of Robert Downey Jr., and I remember saying when he was having his troubles, you had actually said, I think the exact quote was, damn it, Robert Downey Jr., if our uncle can get off drugs and stay out of jail,